Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Business Spotlight podcast, where we shine a light on the incredible entrepreneurs and business leaders in our community. I'm your host, Craig Whipperman with Music City Action Coach, and today we're excited to introduce to you someone who is blazing a trail in recording studio design right here in Nashville. Our guest today is Carl Tatz, owner of Carl Tatz Design. We'll dive into Carl's background, explore the challenges he's faced, and the successes he's celebrated. Whether you're a fellow entrepreneur, an aspiring business owner, or someone who simply loves to support local businesses, this conversation is sure to inspire and inform. So without further ado, let's welcome Carl to the podcast. Carl, how you doing today?
Good. How you doing, Coach Whipperman?
I'm doing fantastic, man. Thanks for being a guest.
Good to be here.
Yeah, so give us a little bit of background about Carl Tatz Design and how you got into owning your own design studio.
Well, originally I'm a musician. I'm still a musician. Once a musician, always a musician. And I somehow I don't even know how old I was, maybe in my 30s. I think I started Carl Tatz Design when actually before that I had a studio in my guest house in Belmead, and the intention was I bought all this recording gear, and I was going to record demos of myself and get a record deal and become rich and famous. But then people started paying me to use the studio with me as the engineer sometimes. And I just kind of got swept away with that. People are paying me to do this. And prior to that, I was a maitre d' at a 4-star French restaurant here in Nashville. And that kind of ended, after 9 years, like I'd had enough, and that was it. But so I had to figure out what I was going to do. And this just kind of, you can't plan these things. It just kind of went. This is what I ended up doing. It's like, I guess this is what I'm going to do now, So, so I was pretty busy in my guest house. I remember doing a soundtrack to a movie and some other demos. And my landlords in Belmead started scratching their heads, wondering what I was doing back there, because I had traffic. So I found a place outside of in Centennial, just next to Centennial Park, right next to the Parthenon, more or less, on 21st Avenue North, and found a house that was just ideal, and just got that house, leased the house, brought in another guy. Unfortunately, Larry Lee, who is the lead singer of the Ozark Mountain Daredevils, he just passed away. And he had that big hit Jackie Blue with them. And anyway, I met him through the restaurant. I met so many people in the music business in the restaurant, because that was like the place to go. It was called Julian's. And I just kind of, I had connections through Larry, and he brought in people, and it was just a symbiotic situation. And I did that. I was there for 18 years at the studio called Recording Arts, and became one of the top studios in town, and just saw a lot of changes in the business. And just as it was, the whole commercial studio business was going off over the cliff in Nashville, I got really lucky, and I sold it to Sheryl Crow. The greatest day of my life. I called up my girlfriend and said, "Honey, we're out here." Went to Florida, but at that point I had to figure out what the hell I was going to do. And there's an organization called what's it called? It's up in Indiana, Indianapolis. It's they specialize in home theater and that kind of stuff. And a friend of mine said, "Well, you should go up there and take some of those classes." So I took like I don't know, tons of classes. I barely saw the conference for like 3 or 4 days. I was taking all these classes, from lighting to everything. And finally I realized, well, I don't want to do all this. And I I kind of settled on, I like the acoustics part. So there was one, the teachers there, um, who just kind of became my mentor. He didn't know he was my mentor at first, but I just kind of followed uh, what I learned from him is Dr. Floyd Toole. Uh, Fast forward, he ended up putting a photo of one of my studios on the front cover of his book.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, saying we kind of became buddies, and we almost did a home theater in Hawaii. I had a client of mine who I did one. He moved to Hawaii and he wanted to do it, and then he changed his mind. He ended up not doing it. But that would have been great. That would have been a thrill to work with him. He's very highly revered in the pro audio business. Um, so that's what I thought I was going to do. I thought I was going to do a lot of home theater in Nashville with my pro background. I figured like I would kill it, but it just didn't work out that way. And because my relationships with the pro audio people, I just started doing studio work. And right in the beginning, I started developing this thing called the Phantom Focus System, which is my monitoring protocol for tuning monitors. And I just started doing that. I think I did one for free, and people started hiring me. I did do one screening room in Malibu, a friend of mine, and I did a 5.1 production room in Nashville for this guy. But I mean, I was just getting going. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Like, let's see what's happening here, So, so I did a bunch of things. And I think a boost for me is I ended up doing, through word of mouth, I ended up doing one of the Rascal Flatts studios. And that was a bump up, and that was the biggest project I'd done at the time. And I ended up doing like 5 studios for those guys. It just kept evolving. I kept learning more, and I'm just a one-man band. I'm still a one-man band, more or less. I have guys I work with. When they're needed, I call them up and say, we're going to go in and do this installation, and they like doing it, because it's the kind of business I can't keep them busy full time. So they were able to stay busy all, with doing renovations and whatever other work that they could pick up. But they always defer to me because doing my stuff was more fun for them. It's more exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. And so let's see here. You do design and installation then?
Yeah, I mean, I do the design, and then I have the way it works typically is I have a design, and I work with the contractor involved. If it's out of town, even if it's in town, usually there's a contractor already kind of there as part of. A lot of these are part of are in homes now. I'd say at least 90% are in homes, or they're from the ground up, but they're still, part of a home.
Yeah.
We've done some schools, some commercial stuff, but that's mostly, what the business is these days, at least for me.
Yeah. At one time I would have never thought of a recording studio in somebody's home, but especially here in Nashville, knowing that there's, I don't know, a lot of big artists and a lot of disposable cash, I guess, or income, a lot of so resources, let's put it that way, a lot of resources to support kind of a studio in your home, much more than there ever was before.
Oh yeah, there's probably more studios in Nashville than any place in the world. And I would say at least, and I'm probably being conservative here, at least 80% of all records made are done in homes now.
Isn't that?
At least,
Isn't that?
maybe higher than that, because you don't need to go to a studio. The only time you really need to go to a studio, a big commercial studio, which are great, is when you're tracking. When you're actually there with the whole band, and they have all the resources, they have all the microphones and the talkback systems and instruments and whatever you need. So for tracking, it's still very attractive. But once the basic tracks are done, it just makes much more sense economically to just go into a home and do the overdubs, do the vocals, and mix at home. You know, people didn't mix at home originally. Oh, hold on. I didn't realize that was going to happen. Hold on, let's see. Turn on Do Not Disturb. See if I can get rid of this. I can't right now. Sorry about that.
No worries.
One never knows. Okay. Um,
So 80% of
yeah, oh yeah, at least. Yeah. So yeah, and people didn't mix at home at first because the gear wasn't really that good and the monitors weren't that good and people hadn't figured it out yet. But now, you know, I'd say most of these records are definitely done at home. And I'm talking
yeah.
major artists.
Yeah, I would think so. How long do you think that trend, when did that trend start?
It started in the 80s, no, in the 90s, late 90s, because, you know, up until then, you know, we were recording on, you know, analog tape. So you'd have to, I mean, I'm not going to give you the whole history of recording, but at least when I got into it, 2-inch, you know, analog tape, 24 track was like the standard. And then Jimmy Bowen came to town and brought digital to Nashville. We were way ahead of everybody in the world with digital, which is crazy. You wouldn't expect country music to be the technology leader, but we were because of that. So everyone, the go-to machine at that point was the Mitsubishi 32 track digital machines. And then after that was the Sony 48 track digital machines. And these are like $160,000 machines. And I had them all because you had to. And then something called the ADAT came out. Like they were just eight tracks of a digital recorder that was like, I don't know, $2,000 or $3,000. And you could just stack them so you could have as many tracks as you wanted and you could sync them up. And that's when it started going downhill. And then something called Pro Tools. Sound Tools, I think is what it was called originally, but now the whole world is Pro Tools. Everything is on a computer and the tracks are limitless. So that's when it started going downhill. That's when I was even part of the trend because everything was done in a studio. And then I said, well, you don't have to do overdubs of vocals in a expensive studio. You can come to a studio like mine and do overdubs for much less money. And that became, you know, all you need is a great microphone preamplifier, a great microphone, and you could do it. And so I was like one of the vanguards of that concept. So a lot of my business was doing that, and then everybody did it. But the whole digital thing is what kind of sank the ship. It was just affordable and just kept getting better and better.
Yeah. So that was one way you were able to differentiate, I guess, back.
Yeah. Yeah, that was my concept. You know, I had a concept like, oh, I can play with the big boys, you know, and that's the way I thought of myself as a little guy. I could play with the big boys with this concept, you know, and give them a comfortable place and great service. I was famous. I had 2 refrigerators that, you know, when you open the doors, you had 4 panels. I had the most exotic soft drinks in the world. Matter of fact, that helped sell my studio to Sheryl Crow. She brought over her road manager and says, look at this. And she opened it up and like, it was very impressive. So I was famous for my refrigerators.
That's awesome.
So, yeah. So, I mean, I took my maitre d' prowess that I'd learned from the French restaurant into the studio business. So basically I was the maitre d' of the studio, you know,
Yeah.
and I would give 4-course dinners. I'd hire a chef and we do 4-course dinners, you know, for somebody who's in there for a few weeks doing, you know, an album or something. So, and I enjoyed it. I'd offer massages, you know, the whole thing, but it kept sliding away. You know, the business was just everybody's going to the home, so the writing was on the wall that it's time to get out.
Yeah. Wow. So you were able to differentiate originally on technology, and then with your what boutique type of white
Yeah,
glove
yeah, yeah,
service. No,
yeah.
that was obviously much different than probably.
And one of the things that drove me was that I felt I had no competition
Mhm.
because what I was offering was unique. And I do the same thing now with my studios. Nobody does what I do. So I don't have any competition. In other words, I'm selling Teslas. If you want a Tesla, I'm your guy. But if you want a Mercedes or a BMW or whatever, then you should hire somebody else. So,
Yeah.
it's just like, if you like my studios, go on the website. If you like that, if you love that, and I'm your guy. Otherwise, I'm not gonna, it's all I want to do. So
Yeah.
I'm in a position of a commanding position.
And so let's dive a little deeper into that, Carl. So are you saying that there are no other recording studio designers
Oh
like
yeah,
yourself?
there's
Or
lots of them. Not like myself, but yeah, there's lots of studio designers, and I'm friendly with most of them. Um,
how do you
but
differentiate? Yeah.
Well, the biggest differentiation is my monitor system. So the Phantom Focus system. We actually build our own monitors now for the last few years. We build them in Nashville. Um, but the system doesn't require using our monitors. It can use with anybody else's speakers. Um, but um, we design based on the monitoring. In other words, the monitoring comes first. It's the most important thing. We design the studio around that rather than just build a room and then sticking some monitors in there. And
Hmm.
we have a look, a certain design. Like I said, it's like a car. We're selling cars and with options. And that makes it repeatable. Their performance is repeatable. So you know what you're going to get because
Yeah.
they're all more or less the same performance wise. We bat 1,000, we guarantee the performance.
Yeah. Okay. So man, the timing was right for selling to Cheryl Crow. What year did you sell?
2003.
2003. So that's over 20 years ago.
Mm.
Does she still have the studio over there?
No, she only kept it for a couple of years, and then she sold it to somebody else that was selling surgical equipment, and they only had it for a couple of years, and then they came in and leveled the whole block, and now it's office buildings now. But no, she just put something out in her house and wherever she lives out in the country. But
Yeah. Right.
nothing exotic, pretty laid back from
Did
what
you help her? Did you
I,
design
I
that for her?
didn't. I would have loved to have, but I didn't.
Yeah. Hmm. So share with me, Carl, what's your biggest learning experience? What have you learned, gosh, since you have started this venture now with designing home studios or independent studios, taking that job on?
You're worth what you charge.
You're worth what you charge. Expand on that one for me.
Um, in other words, if I don't know how do I expand on that? If you charge, X amount, um, and you just stand by it, that's what, you just say, this is what it costs. If this is what you want, this is how much it costs. Again, using the car analogy, if you go into a Mercedes dealership and you want a Mercedes, this is how much it costs. You
Mhm.
want a Ford, that this is how much it costs, but you can't get a Mercedes for the price of this Ford, so you just have to and obviously you can do that when you have a track record like I do. But even up front, I think you have to say, I'm worth this to yourself.
Yes.
And obviously you have to deliver. But I think if you had the idea, like nobody does what I do, all your competitors, you speak well of all your competitors and they do great work, but they don't do what I do. If you want what I do, this is how much it costs.
Very well said. Sell on value, not on price, right?
I guess it's worked
Yeah.
so far.
Yeah. Great, man. Yeah, and you know what? There's a mindset to that.
Totally. No, I mean, even if you're like a recording engineer, I mean, the recording business was the recording studio business. The commercial recording stereo business was studio business was notorious for people grinding you down. You know, everybody comes to you like with a hat in their hand, and everybody wants a deal. Now, in the heyday, that wasn't the case because you didn't have all these options. You certainly didn't have home studios or anything like that. But as you know, I mean, just like the record business, they were making more money than the music business. I mean, it was an unbelievable amount of revenue was generated from the record companies, and the record companies had these huge budgets for records. That's why you listen to stuff down to the 70s and 80s. Why those records like Doobie Brothers or whomever, they could go in the studio for a long, long time. And that's why those records sound unbelievable today. You know, it's just how could anything be that good, you know? And that was part of it. So that kind of declined at the same time for all reasons.
Yeah. Tell me, what was some of the hardest moments in building Carl Tatz design?
Um, oh, gee, I don't know. I had a couple of projects that were very, very difficult, very stressful. And for multiple reasons, but I think generally like having a bad contractor who was not doing what he should do and just slowed everybody up, you know. Yeah, those are terrible experiences, but you know, the great majority, you know, all my even those clients are all extremely happy with the results. But it's it can be very stressful at times, and I'm sure that's true with any business. You know, I mean, I don't want to let anybody down, you know, but I don't want to get screwed either.
Yeah.
You know, so it has to do with the responsibility and you know, you don't ever want anybody to say anything negative about your business, you know, and even if it costs you, even if you lose money on it, you can't afford that.
How do you get your business? Is it by word of mouth or?
Yeah, word of mouth seems to be the best way, but I do advertising, just to you know, keep it out there so that you know people know you exist. And advertising is a very strange thing. You can't quantify it. Matter of fact, recently I'm doing I hired an SEO for the website, and I just stopped all my magazine advertising. And right then, all of a sudden, I got a lot more business. Soon as I stopped advertising. So that's a secret. Don't advertise. That's not true. Anyway.
Well, so your SEO may have been the source of that boost.
No, that's too early on.
Oh, okay.
I'm waiting for them to produce at this point.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. And word of mouth, and do you mostly are you recruited in the design phase of the home the majority of the time, or is it kind of
I can. Yeah, I mean, that's the ideal. I mean, I even selected the house for Jada Marcus's second studio. There were two studios. I said, this is the one you want. So I wasn't that involved, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's the ideal, you know, it's from the ground up. I mean, I'm working on one right now that it's from the ground up, but they've already the architect has already designed the building that the studio is going to be in, and it's like ridiculous. Like, what? It's a very I mean, it's a handsome building and everything, but for a studio, it's going to take a lot of greasing and shoehorns to make this thing work. So I'm just beginning to look at that one. But ideally you want, you know what, sometimes it happens, I mean, if it's a simple project, if you're just building like a rectangular building house, then that's simple. But I'm just thinking back, there's some other ones that, there's a lot of times it's an existing, they'll show me the plan, and then I've got to figure out how I can do what I do in there, So those are harder. But
yeah, it's not that the designer, gave you some space in the house, but it'd be nice if he kind of called you and said, "Hey, take a look at these plans first before I find."
Yeah, well, I mean, there's, as long as there's flexibility there, you make it works out, and everybody's happy.
Yeah. How many projects do you do typically in a year?
People ask me that, it just depends. I mean, some of these projects last a couple of years.
Oh, wow.
And take up a lot of time.
Mhm.
So it's hard to say,
How many will you start? How many will you start in a year?
How many what?
How many jobs will you start? Will you take on in a year? Maybe they go a year, maybe they go 2 years, but
Yeah, you never know, and it depends whether they happen at the same time. Like I had 3 projects going at the same time, big projects going together at the same time the last couple of years, and they didn't really butt heads, but they could. They did kind of, but you just have to say, this is what's happening. Uh, because of scheduling and your contract or whatever, it is what it is. But what I was going to say is, in between that, we do the phantom focus monitor systems in existing studios or existing houses, whatever, in bedrooms, so that fills in any blank spaces that might seem to be. And those are fast,
yeah.
I'd be happy just doing those. They're easy,
Yeah. Right.
and fast and very satisfying.
Yeah. Right. What is it? Would you say is it standard, or has it gotten to the point where it's standard that the music artists, recording artists have a studio in their home? Does it got to the point where it's a standard thing for?
I'm pretty close, I'm not sure. I mean, some artists couldn't care less about having a studio. And in others, it's required, as far as they're concerned. And it's not so much artists as engineers will do it, guys who do recording, for other people, but not necessarily artists.
Oh, gotcha. And so what's a typical type of home that you would, I mean, I'm sure you could, if you went into a recording artist, it's probably massive, but the engineers, I would imagine, probably on the other end of the spectrum. Is there a common size of house that you put
No,
recording?
like I said, I mean, it can be in a bedroom. I mean, often it's just in an unused bedroom, and we can just go in there and do that. The big issue, the first question that you have to ask these people is like, how important is isolation? So if they're in a house and they've got a family or a spouse or whatever, it's pretty, like if somebody's going to put one of these in an upstairs bedroom, it's not going to be a secret. Even if you spend a lot of money with building rooms within rooms and that kind of stuff, it'd be very hard to isolate it completely. But some people don't care. If they say I don't care, I say, oh good, well, you just saved yourself a fortune. And if it's, the ideal is to have it in a separate building, like sometimes if it's an attached garage and you can turn the garage into one of these,
Right.
But yeah, it's surprising. Sometimes they don't care, or they're both musicians, or the husband and wife are both recording engineers. I've had couples like that, and they don't care.
Oh.
Yeah. So
So, Carl, in your journey here, you just kind of fell into owning a studio to begin with, and then evolved into now designing studios.
Right.
And so throughout, oh gosh, you've been on an entrepreneurial journey for 30 years or so, I guess, right?
Oh, more than that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're celebrating our 25th year of Carl Tatz Design right now. And
Right.
I had the studio for 18 years before that.
Oh, so we're talking in 40,
Yeah,
45.
yeah, yeah. I haven't had a regular job. I've only had I was a teenager when I had a regular job. You know, that was
So,
any duration. Waiting tables, I mean, even then,
oh
being a waiter, or in my case, became the maitre d' of this restaurant. It's you're somewhat independent, especially if you're a waiter. You
yeah.
know, you're kind of in business for yourself in a way.
Yeah.
It's not like punching a clock someplace. Although some restaurants you do punch clocks, but um, you got a lot of freedom.
Yeah. Well, I've told my kids this before, you want an introduction into life, you should wait tables for a while, because you learn how well your services are received and how to interact with people, how to make sure that they're
So it sounds like you waited tables.
well. No, I knew a lot of people who did, and I have
Yeah,
a lot of appreciation for people who do it well,
yeah,
because it's noticeable to me when people do it well, as it is noticeable when they don't do it well. So,
yeah. I
um,
mean, nowadays, I mean, I could be. People think that I'm much more critical than I am because I don't expect that much.
mhm,
Because I came from a very high service restaurant. So
mhm,
I don't expect to see that. Most of the time it's just some college kid or somebody who couldn't care less. But every once in a while you'll see somebody good. But if you go into an expensive restaurant, you'll see pros. And it's not they don't keep saying thank you for asking that, I
mhm.
hate that. It's such a cliche. Oh, thank you for asking. But they're you can tell they're pros.
Yeah.
They're they they might be a rocket scientist, in reality, but they get it, and they understand you know what it's about. But again,
Right.
you're only going to see that in a money house, but
Yeah.
you're making a lot of money.
That's right. That's exactly right. Well, that's part of the reason they're making a lot of money is because they've got the right people, serving and knowing how to serve and actually knowing how to sell, really.
Yep.
Um, so throughout your whole experience, Carl, have you had a mentor or a leader or someone that you've looked up to or somebody who's guided you or advised you throughout that
Just
you would
just
say,
that just that person I mentioned, that Dr. Floyd Toole.
hmm,
He came to town to lecture, and I lecture, by the way. I lecture at Blackbird Academy. I've been doing that for years, and I've lectured at different conferences and things like that. But he came to town, and we just spent a couple of days together. And I took him to some studios I was building at the time, and I'd say, "Look, Floyd, I'm doing this. I learned this from you. And it was a lot of fun." And he heard the piano poker system, and he had nothing but great things to say. So, but other than that, no, I'm kind of like a lone wolf, I guess.
yeah,
And the whole thing, if you have a business, I had a drive and a passion, you know,
yeah,
to do it. And, it's if you don't have that, you're not going to do it.
yeah, yeah. So no one really beyond Dr. Toole that maybe guided you business wise or strategically or provided another set of eyes or ears.
Nope. Yeah, I wish I had, and I'm all for the concept, but I didn't have anybody take me under their wing, so
Yeah.
to speak. Although I did have one of my clients, the guy who had me do the place out in Malibu. He's a screening room in this beautiful house in Malibu, and also the production room in Nashville. He he would probably qualify also, because he was one of
Mhm.
those people who could see things in people,
Hmm.
and he would give them leeway to do it. Um, and that was great for me at the time,
Mhm.
helping to get me going, you know.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
what you needed.
yeah. Some guy, he believed in me. He saw something, and I said, I'm gonna give this guy a shot. And also, I mean, I was nominated for a Grammy for producing an album, a singer called Jack Jones. Um, and he's the one who created that for me, put that
Oh,
together.
wow.
Quite a thrill.
Wow, that's pretty awesome, man. Not too many people are nominated for Grammys. Yeah,
That was something. It's quite an experience.
yeah, cool. So a couple more questions for you. If I had a magic wand and could wave it and change one thing in your business, what would that be?
Buy my business, which is never going to happen because it's me, you know. Um,
Yeah.
uh, let's see, a magic wand. Yeah, I'm always simplifying and trying to make things easier.
Mhm.
Um, and I wish I had, sometimes I think, well, I wish I had, you know, somebody in my office that could do all the minutia that I don't want to do, you know, something like that. But yeah, like I say, I'm a one-man band. It's not going to change at this point. And I made that decision a long time ago. I'm not the kind of person who could run a business with a fleet of white vans, you know, just not me.
Right.
So,
Yeah. And then we'll end on a high note. Tell me, tell me what it is you're most proud of in your business.
well, I'm proud of, the work, my legacy, which is basically the studios, which you can see on Carl Tatz Design. Um, I'm grateful for the accolades I've received. I've received a lot of awards and nominations. Um, and the fact that people think I know what I'm doing, um, I've been fooling them for years. So that's, I haven't revealed it yet, so as long as they keep believing in me.
Yeah.
It's funny,
Well,
I just saw something recently about, I think it was Obama was talking about, this was so true. He was talking about how if you enter politics, and it just follows for anything, and you sit down at a table, with a bunch of pros, and you find out they're no different than you are. Uh, and then you said the same thing, you become president of the United States, and you sit at a table with all these dignitaries and presidents or dictators of different countries, and you realize, they're just guys, and some of them are good, and some of them are jerks. Some of them are. And a friend of mine also who did a lot of construction in Florida. When he started, he and his partner, they thought, well, we're the little guys, we don't know what we're doing, And then he found out, like, these are the big guys, to some extent. So you have to have a certain amount of chutzpah to do this stuff.
yeah, yeah, some gravitas, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Carl, it's been great chatting with you, man. Learning about your business, your history, how you started out as a maitre d and leveraged that experience to create a design studio of your own, sell out, and then roll with the technology. And
What's
now,
next?
yeah, what's next? Right.
Well, I'm also performing. That's what's next. I want to record an album, and if I can follow through on the success I've had and the other things I've done, um, uh, you should know about it.
Yeah, that'll be awesome, man. And so,
Okay.
what instrument, what type of music you playing?
Um, it's I would categorize it as jazzy pop. It's all original, and I play guitar.
Nice.
a singer-songwriter artist.
Cool, man. Are you playing any local?
I don't have anything scheduled, but you can see on YouTube. There's a video of. I think you can just YouTube Carl Tatz. I think it's listed as amazing singer-songwriter or something like that. YouTube. I don't know who makes this stuff up, but so you can see what I'm doing.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I'll go check that out.
Yeah.
As I hope everybody watching does too.
What's that?
I said, as I hope everybody who's watching
Yeah.
as well.
Well, thank you, Coach. I appreciate it. I hope I passed the audition.
Yes, you most definitely did, dude. Hey, it was a great conversation, Carl.
Okay.
We'll connect again, okay?
Thanks, Greg.